Good day, everyone. I'm Lian Kimada, and welcome to CP 105 Assessment of Learning 1. So, for today, we are going to discuss the chapter 4, which entitled Administering, Analyzing, and Improving Tests. So, our learning objective for this morning is to define the basic concept regarding item analysis, identify the steps in improving test items, solve difficulty index and discrimination index, identify the level of difficulty of an item, perform item analysis properly and correctly, identify the item to be rejected, revised, or retained, and interpret the result of item analysis. Okay, so for our introduction, we really know that one of the most important functions of a teacher is to assess the performance of the students. And this is a very complicated task because you will consider many activities such as the timing of the assessment process, the format of the assessment tools, and the duration of the assessment procedures. Now, after designing the assessment tools, you need to package the test and administer the test to the students. And then after that, you will collect the test paper and check the test papers and give them score and record them to your class record. And then after that, it's time for you to return the test paper and then give feedback to the students regarding the result of the test. So let's go back to the packaging and reproducing test item. So assuming class that you have already assembled the test and you write the instructional objectives, you have already prepared the table of specifications and write the test item that match with the instructional objectives. So the next thing to do is to package the test item and reproduce it as discussed in the previous chapter. So before reproducing the test item, you need to check these things. You have already put the items with the same format together. If you have already arranged the test items from easy to difficult, if you already keep questions and options in the same page, and if you place the illustrations near the options, check the key answer, check the direction of the test, if you've already provided space for name, date, and score, and if you've already proofread the test before reproducing the test. So these are the things need to consider before administering the examination. So of course, after constructing the test item and putting them in order, the next step is to administer the test to the students, right? So the administration procedures greatly affect also the performance of the student in the test. So the test administration class does not simply mean giving the test questions to the students and collecting the test papers after the given time. So it's not like that. So here are the guidelines class in administering the test before, during, and after the test. So let's present first the guidelines before administering examination. So first, you need to try to induce positive risk-taking attitude to your students. Okay. The second one is to inform the students about the purpose of the test. Give oral direction as early as possible before distributing the test. Give test taking hints about guessing, skipping, and the like are strictly prohibited. Fifth one is to inform the students about the length of allowed for the test, if possible. Write on the board the time in which they must be finished with answering the test and give the students a warning before the end of the time limit. Sixth is you need to tell the students how to signal or call your attention if they have a question. Tell the students what to do with their papers when they are done answering the test, how papers are to be collected, and then you tell the students what to do when they are done when the test, particularly if they are to go on to another activity. Also write this direction on the chalkboard so they can refer to them, and rotate the method of distributing papers so you don't always start from the left or the front row. So make sure the room is well lighted and has a comfortable temperature, and remind students to put their name on their papers and where to do so. So if the test has more than one page, have each student check to see if that all pages are there. So these are the things you need to do before administering the examinations. So during the examinations naman, ito naman ngayon yung guidelines during administering examination. So habang nagtitake na ng exam yung mga estudyante. So do not give instruction or avoid talking while examination is going on to minimize interruption and distractions. Second is to avoid giving hints, monitor to check students' progress and discourage cheating, give time warning if students are not pacing their work appropriately, make a note of any questions students ask during the test so that the item can be revised for the future use, and test papers must be collected uniformly to save time and to avoid test papers to be misplaced. These are the things you need to consider during administering examination. Okay, so here is the guidelines after administering examination. So first, you need to grade the papers, and you need to do test analysis after scoring and before returning the papers to the student if at all possible. So if you are recording grades or scores, record them in pencil in your class record before returning the papers. If there are errors or adjustment in grading, they are easier to change when recorded in pencil. And then it's time to return the papers in timely manner and discuss the test item with the student. So you need to discuss them thoroughly, lahat ng mga items doon. Students have questions or for clarification also. Okay, now, so let's proceed in analyzing the test. So after administering and scoring the test, the teacher should also analyze the quality of each item in the test, because through this you can identify the item that is good, item that needs improvement, or items to be removed from the test. So in this section, I shall introduce to you the technique to help teachers determine the quality of a test item known as item analysis. So one of the purpose of item analysis is to improve the quality of the assessment tools, and through this process, we can identify the item that is to be retained, item that is to be revised or to be rejected, and also the content of the lesson that is mastered or not. Okay? So, what is item analysis then? So, item analysis is a process of examining the student's response to individual item in the test. So it consists of different procedures for assessing the quality of the test items given to the students. And through the use of item analysis, we can really identify which of the given are good and defective test items. So good items are to be retained, while the defective items are to be improved or to be revised or to be rejected. So how do we do item analysis? So let's proceed to the steps and item analysis. Okay? Okay, so ngayon dumangkot tayo sa mga hakbang sa paggawa ng item analysis. So unang hakbang nga rito ay ang pagbuo ng test item. So nais ko lang ipaalala na bago po tayo bumuo ng test item ay dapat nakagawa na po tayo ng table of specifications. Kasi nga ito yung isa sa mahalagang guide or maging gabay ng teacher sa pagbuo niya ng test item. Kaya hindi pwede na mauna yung pag-construct mo ng test item na hindi pa nakakagawa ng table of specifications. Isa rin po sa dapat na siguraduhin is dapat align po ang ating test item doon sa ating instructional objective. And then, after that, that is the time to proceed to the next step, which is the conduct of item tryout. So, dito sa item tryout, ang kailangan gawin ng teacher is pasasagutan niya ang constructed test item sa mga group of people na may similar characteristic doon sa intended test taker natin. So halimbawa po, ang intended test taker mo is grade 10, Section A, Section B, at Section C. So pwede mong pasagutan ang test item sa mga grade 10 students na nasa Section D. Kasi nga, student from Section A, B, C, and D have similar characteristics. Isa rin sa mahalagang punto na dapat ninyong malaman based na rin sa aking nabasa at napanood ng mga video about item analysis is that kailangan yung test item na binigay mo doon sa inyong pilot respondents, example for this one is Section D, ay kailangang doble ang bilang. Ibig sabihin po is doon sa ginawa niyong TOS, if ang nakalagay lang doon sa multiple choice ay hanggang 5 items lang, kailangan ninyong gawing 10. Para if ever na ma-reject yung ilan sa mga test item na nandoon, ay meron kayong pansuporta or pandagdag. At if ever po na hindi ninyo nadagdagan, magkakaroon po ngayon ng problema kasi magkukulang ngayon yung inyong multiple choice item if ever na merong item doon na ma-reject. Okay? So, ang tanong, paano naman po kung dinoble namin pero wala namang na-reject na item? Isasama pa rin ba natin yung lahat if ever na mag-conduct na tayo or mag-administer na tayo ng examination doon sa section A, B, at C? So, kapag ganun, kapag walang na-reject na test item, ang mangyayari is babalik po kayo sa TOS at susundin ang number of test item na nakalaan doon. Kasi nga, ginawa lang naman natin yun in case na mayroong ma-reject ng item. Pero kung wala namang na-reject, babalik po kayo doon sa table of specifications. Sana naging malinaw yun, no? Okay? So, after na pasagutan ang test paper sa section D, kukolektahin ko ngayon yung examination sheet at check ko. So, after kong ma-check yun, of course, lagyan ko yun ng score. And from there, doon ko natitingnan at doon ko i-arrange yung score ng mga bata from highest to lowest. So, after natin magawa ang step na to, ang next step na gagawin natin is we need now to determine the upper group and the lower group. So, paano nga ba natin yun makukuha? Or paano natin madidetermine? So, para po malaman natin ang upper at lower group, kailangan lang natin kunin ang total number of students ng ating test taker and multiply it by 27%. But before that, we need to convert 27% into decimal point. So, magiging 0.27 na siya. So, yung 27% is the standard talaga class. So, ang total number ng section D ay 40 students. So, yung 40 students multiplied by 0.27, ang result is 10.85 or 10.8. So, ira-round off ko yan at yan ay magiging 11. Okay? So, ngayon, balikan natin ang inarrange kong test paper ng mga bata. So, di ba naka-arrange yun from highest to lowest, right? So, para ma-determine natin naman yung alin ang upper group doon, kunin natin ang test paper at mula sa taas, magbilang tayo ng 11 test paper. So yung 11 test paper na makukuha mo, yun yung magiging upper group mo. So, kailangan mo yung i-separate. Okay. So, para naman ma-determine mo ang iyong lower group, kunin mo yung natirang test paper at mula sa pinakababa, magbilang ka ng 11 test papers at yun naman ang lower group mo, okay? So, yung naiwang test paper, yun ang middle group. So, hindi natin yun kakailanganin, kaya isasantabi natin yun. So, ngayon, meron na tayong upper at lower group. Next step is to construct an item analysis table. So, as you can see dito, ito yung halimbawa ng item analysis table. Okay? So, makikita natin sa table ang options, option A, option B, option C, at option D. At kung nagtataka kayo, yung may asterisk class, yan yung key answer ng item number 1. Yan yung tamang sagot sa item number 1, yung mayroong asterisk. So, makikita rin natin dito yung upper group at saka yung lower group, right? At saka yung total. So, actually, class blanco ito muna. Itong nakalagay dito, blanco muna yan. Tayo na ngayon yung magtatali or mag-fill out niyan. Okay? So, basically, yung gagawin nyo is kukunin mo yung test paper ng upper group at ng lower group at titingnan mo isa-isa kung ilan ang sumagot sa letter A. So, kung ilan ba ang sumagot sa letter A, letter B, letter C, at hanggang letter D. Same process yung gagawin mo. Kukunin mo yung papel ng lower group and then bibilangin mo kung ilan ang sumagot ng A, ilan ang sumagot ng B, ilan ang sumagot ng C, at ilan ang sumagot ng. So, kapag natali mo na yun, isusulat mo na sa table ang number like this one at saka yung total. Okay, so after makumpleto lahat ng kailangan doon sa table, this time you will compute na the value of the difficulty index and the discrimination index. So, ang difficulty index class, ito yung portion ng number of students na sumagot ng tama dito sa upper group at lower group. So, kapag napakataas ng difficulty index class, ibig sabihin nun, napakadali ng test item na yon at nangangahulugan din yon that student already mastered the content measured by the item. So, sa pag-compute ng difficulty index, gagamitin natin ang formula na ito. Difficulty index equals n over n, where small n is the number of the students selecting item correctly in the upper group and lower group, and the capital N is the total number of students who answered the test. So, yung example natin kanina, yung item number 1, titingnan natin dito based sa formula, small n is tumutukoy doon sa number of students selecting item correctly. So, dahil nga correctly, yung nakakuha lamang ng tamang sagot, dito po tayo magpo-focus kasi ito yung correct answer ng item number 1. So, bibilangin lang natin kung ilan yung nakakuha ng tamang sagot sa upper group at saka sa lower group. So, based dito sa ating example, meron tayong 9 at saka meron tayong 5. So, isa-sum up lang natin yung dalawa. So, meron tayong 14. And then, i-divide natin siya sa total number of student who answered the test. So, alam naman natin na kanina meron tayong total number of students na 40. So, yung mangyayari dito, 14 divided by 40. So, yung result po is 0.35 or 35%. So, based dito sa 0.35, titingnan natin yung interpretation ng difficulty index na ito. So, kung titingnan natin dito sa table, makikita natin na yung 0.35 is in between po siya ng 0.26 hanggang 0.75, which is yung interpretation ay mayroong right difficulty lang yung item number 1 or average. And then action to be taken, it should be retained. So, after mahanap natin yung interpretation ng difficulty index ng item number 1, it's time for us to write our conclusion. So, we can use this template. So, the difficulty index of item number 1 is 0.35 or 35%, which indicates that it has an average or right difficulty. Thus, item number 1 should be retained. Okay? So, sana po naging malinaw yon sa inyo. Okay, so ngayon tapos na po nating makompute yung difficulty index. Ang next po nating gagawin is i-compute yung value ng discrimination index. So, dito sa discrimination index, we can use the power of item to discriminate the student who know the lesson and those who do not know the lesson. So, gagamitin po natin dito ngayon yung formula kung saan makikita natin na yung discrimination index equals the number of students in the upper group who got an item correctly minus the number of the students in the lower group who got an item correctly too. Divide the difference by either the number of the students in the upper group or a number of students in the lower group. So, kung titingnan po natin dito sa ating table, based po sa formula, kailangan daw kunin natin yung number ng students na nakakuha ng tamang sagot. So, ibig sabihin, dito sa upper group, meron po tayong 9. So, ilagay po natin dito 9. And then, yung DL dito is yung mga estudyanteng nakakuha ng tamang sagot doon naman sa lower group. So, dito po sa lower group, based sa table or item number 1, ay 5 po ang nakakuha ng tamang sagot sa lower group. So, yan po, 5. And then, over D, so itong D, yung total number of the test takers either in upper group or lower group. So, ibig sabihin, isa-sum up po natin yung total number ng test taker sa bawat grupo. Kung dito po sa upper group, ilan po lahat ng nag-take? So, dito bibilangin lang po natin 9 plus 1 plus 1 is 11. So, ilagay po natin 11. And then, dito naman sa lower group, 3 plus 5 is 8 plus 3 is 11 din. So, ilagay po natin 11. So, kapag nag-subtract po tayo ng fraction, tingnan po natin na meron po siyang same denominator. Kaya, yung gawin lang po natin is subtract lang po yung nasa taas, numerator, 9 minus 5, and then copy the denominator. So, 9 minus 5 is equal to 4, and then over 11. So, we need to divide 4, divide 11, and our discrimination index is 0.36. Ngayong nakuha na natin yung discrimination index natin, all we need to do is to refer dito sa ating table kung saan makikita natin ang 0.36 ay in between po siya ng negative 0.50 hanggang 0.45. And meron po itong interpretation na could not discriminate and we need to revise. So after po nating ma-refer sa table na ito, we need to write our conclusion that the discrimination power of item number 1 is 0.36, which indicates that it could not discriminate properly. Thus, item number 1 should be revised. Okay? So, hindi nito masasabi kung sino talaga yung nag-aral at kung sino naman yung hindi. Okay, so based nga sa difficulty index, ang sabi doon that item number 1 should be retained, pero doon naman sa discrimination index, ang sabi doon is the item should be revised. So, kapag ganoon po yung nangyayari, ano ba yung dapat nating gawin? Kasi nga, as a teacher, it is very important to determine whether the test item will be retained, will be revised, or rejected. So using this discrimination index that we have here, we can identify now that non-performing question items, so we just always remember that they seldom indicate what is the problem. Okay? So kapag ganoon po yung result, like kanina, na hindi po tugma yung mga conclusions doon na i-revise at i-retain, refer po tayo dito sa checklist for discrimination index. Meron po tayong panote dito na if the answer to the question 1 and 2 are both yes, then we should retain the item. If the answer to the question 1 and 2 are either yes or no, revise the item. And then if the answer to the questions 1 and 2 are both no, then it's time to reject the item. So, ito po yung checklist na pagbabasihan natin if we're going to retain, revise, or reject the item. Okay? Okay. So, ang tanong una dito is, does the key discriminate positively? So, ano po bang ibig sabihin dito? Meron po tayong tinatawag dito na positive discrimination and then negative discrimination. Pag sinabi po nating positive discrimination, it happens when more students in the upper group got the item correctly than those students in the lower group. Ibig pong sabihin ng positive discrimination is marami yung estudyante doon sa upper group na nakakuha ng tamang sagot kaysa doon sa lower group. Yun yung tinatawag natin na positive discrimination. Pero, kung negative discrimination naman, it occurs when more students in the lower group got the item correctly than the students in the upper group. Okay? So, yun po yung two types of discrimination. So, ang tanong dito is, does the key discriminate positively? So, yung key po dito, yung tinutukoy niya po is yung tamang sagot, which is our letter B. Ito yung may asterisk. So, does the key discriminate positively? Ang tinatanong po niya dito ay kung ang upper group ba ay nakakuha ba ng mas maraming sagot kaysa sa lower group. Titingnan natin dito sa table na ito. So, mas marami nga ba yung nakakuha ng correct answer sa upper group kaysa sa lower group? Yes or no? Ano ba yung sagot? Tama, yes. So, ilalagay natin dito na yes. Okay. And then, yung second question is that, does the incorrect options discriminate negatively? So, pag sinabi po nating options, ibig sabihin, magfo-focus po tayo dito sa mga distractors. Itong letter A, letter C, at letter D. Kasi ito yung mga options. Maliban na lang sa letter B kasi ito yung key answer. So, titingnan po natin yung A, C, at D. So, does the incorrect options discriminate negatively? Ibig po niyang sabihin, kung mas marami pa yung bilang or yung number ng lower group kesa doon sa upper group. Kung titingnan natin ang letter A, mas marami ba ang lower group kaysa upper group? Yes, mas marami, di ba? Ang letter C, pantay lang sila kasi wala. Ang letter D, mas marami pa rin. So, does the incorrect option discriminate negatively? No. Bakit po natin nasabing no? Kasi merong option dito na nagpantay sila. Okay? Kasi ang sabi dito, does the incorrect option discriminate negatively? So, dapat po marami dito sa lower group. Ang kaso dito sa letter C, nagpantay sila. Kaya sasabihin natin dito na no. So, dahil nga no yung sagot natin, yes or no yung sagot natin, dito tayo mahuhulog sa letter B. So, if the answer to the question 1 and 2 are either yes or no, revise the item. So, this time, we're going to revise the item. So, dahil nga marirevise po yung item na yun, i-change lang po natin is yung mga distractors. And this is what we call distractor analysis. So, it is the term used for the incorrect options in the multiple choice type of test while the correct answers represent the key. So, ito po yung table kanina natin. So, meron po tayong indicators that a distractor should be revised. Number 1, if no one chose the particular distractor. So, di ba nga, makikita natin na itong letter C, wala talagang pumili. So, we can say na itong letter C talaga is revised talaga. So, number 2, if the distractor in the upper group is greater than the lower group. So, kung titingnan natin ang option A at option D, makikita natin na mas malaki yung lower group kesa sa upper group. So, hindi natin to i-change. Kasi nga, yung normal talaga is malaki yung lower group kesa sa upper group. Magkakaroon ng revision kapag malaki ang number na sumagot sa upper group kesa sa lower group. Kapag po ito nagkabaliktad, naging 3 po dito sa upper group at naging 1 dito sa lower group, ang mangyayari po niyan is magkakaroon po ng revision. Okay? So, number 3, if the distractor in the lower group and upper group is equal. Let's say, for example, naging 3 yan at naging 3 din ito sa lower group, tapos 3 din sa upper group, then the option A should be revised also. Okay? So, I hope it is clear. So, after analyzing the options that we need to revise, we can write now our conclusion. So, based sa table na ito, we need to revise option C. Okay? So, distractor C should be revised. So, yan po yung distractor analysis. Okay? So, sana po naging malinaw po sa inyo yung mga steps and item analysis. So, narito po yung aking reference na ginamit. Thank you everyone for listening. God bless and keep safe.